Okay, so hello again, everybody. So I have moved over to chapter, section 10.6 in your book. I previously said to you we're going to skip 10.5. I mean, you could read that if you want, but it's interesting. It's on gambling and probabilities. I don't want to really get into that too much. Okay. So diversification in stock portfolios. There's a lot of news that comes out about companies, right? There's firm specific. Firm specific is bad news about a specific company, right? And then, of course, we have, as we just discussed, systemic risk, such as what we're dealing with now. And firm specific news, good or bad news about an individual company. They may have too much debt. They may have very bad sales. And you're going to hear a lot of firm specific news coming out now after this coronavirus. There's going to be a shakeout. And a lot of companies are going to be pretty much gone. And market-wide news, again, is news that affects all stocks. And I'll just say such as news about a lot of things, including what we're dealing with now. You know, it's unfortunate, but there's going to be a shakeout. Okay, so independent risks, basically due to firm-specific risks, it has a lot of names, right? Firm-specific, idiosyncratic is similar, just to basically just for that. Unique risk, unsystematic, which is the one you hear the most, and diversifiable risk. These are the two that you'll really hear a lot. But all of these refer to the same thing: the risk within a particular company. And common risks, as you know, also are known as systematic or undiversifiable or market risk, or things that affect everything pretty much equally, the whole economy, right? Such as the 2008 crash or the Great Depression in 1929. Or so basically the difference between firm-specific and systematic. When you have a large portfolio, firm-specific will be diversified out, right? As I kind of showed you with some of my stuff, some stuff went up, some stuff went down. And the systematic risk, however, will affect all firms and will not be diversified. It's something we just can't get rid of. So if we look at two companies here, Type S are affected only by systematic risk. And there's a 50% chance the economy will be strong, and Type S stocks will earn a return of 40%. And there's a 50% chance the economy will be weak, and their return will be minus 20%. So because all these firms are basically, face the same systematic risk, you're really not diversified out. So these will affect all firms the same. So you have no diversification there. And basically consider Type I firms, right? I guess maybe that's independent. They're affected only by firm-specific risks. Their returns are equally likely to be 35% or minus 25%. And again, because these are firm-specific, if we hold a portfolio of the stocks, we basically diversify out the risk. We diversify out that risk. In reality, in life, we got to deal with both of these, right? So if you only own one stock, of course, you have to deal with the firm specific, and even if you have a portfolio, you got to deal with the systematic risk. So it's real life stuff. And so here's basically Type S firms with systematic risk. And it never goes away. It doesn't matter how many stocks you have; it's always there. There's like a flaw to it. And here's Type I firms. Depending on the number of stocks you have, you diversify. You're getting rid of the volatility, right? You see how the volatility is dropping as you pick up a lot of shares, right? And this is, I guess, I don't know how they define typical firms, but what their meaning of typical is, But anyway. As you pick up more and more stocks, you diversify out. All right, so here's a problem of type S firms are equally likely to have returns of 40% or minus 20%. So how do you get their expected return? Equally likely tells you right away what, 50%, right? So at 50% of 40, right, and 50% of minus 20. So the standard deviation is right here, right? A half of, again, this is a different way of calculating. They're doing everything in one step. They're doing the variance and the standard deviation all in one step. So inside this parentheses is the variance, and they're just taking the square root, okay? So the volatility is 30%. So because all S firms have high or low returns at the same time, the average return of 10 type S firms is also going to be the same. Thus, it has the same volatility of 30% as shown in Figure 8. Type I firms have equally likely returns of 35 or 25, and their expected return, again, is shown here. Because the returns of type I firms are independent, using equation 10.8, the average return of 10 type firms has volatility of what? You divide that by the square root of 10, right? And you get 9.5% as shown in the figure 10.8. So the volatility, so you take that and you divide it by the square root of 10 here. You notice you don't have to do that here because they're all equally likely, right? It's two equally likely. So, and here you're looking at these 10 independent companies. So there's no risk premium when you diversify out, right? There's no such thing as a risk premium. You just, just diversify out, and you don't get anything extra. A company's not going to give you a bigger return if you tell them, well, I own 10 stocks or 20 stocks. Then it's just not going to do that, right? Okay, so basically, by doing so, investors could earn an additional premium without taking on additional risk. And obviously, you would get exploited if they gave you a return because you have a lot of stocks, right? So investors simply eliminate firm-specific risk by for free by simply diversifying, like I tried to do. They will not require or earn a reward or risk premium for holding it. Okay, so what we're getting to here is we're going to be using the capital asset pricing model to look at the non-diversifiable risk. So the risk premium of a security is determined by its systematic risk, okay, which is going to get us to the capital asset pricing model, and it does not depend on its non-diversifiable risk. I'll highlight that. So this implies that a stock's volatility, which is a measure of total risk, which includes systematic plus diversifiable risk, is not especially useful in determining the risk premium that investors will earn. The risk premium is going to be determined by one thing only: the systematic risk or non-diversifiable risk. Let me just save that. All right, so we can't use standard deviation as a measure of risk for an individual security. So the reason is there's no clear relationship between volatility and average returns for individual securities, really. Consequently, we have to estimate a security's expected return. We need to find a measure of a security's. So it's the systematic risk we got to worry about. So this is very important right here. So we got to highlight that, right? We got to highlight that. So that becomes a true important thing